welcome back to another episode with Nicole McKinney, talking to you all about entrepreneurship with a focus on real estate. Super excited to have you here, continuing to listen. Subscribe to the channel, guys. I do this every time. I know it's annoying, but you got to do it. That YouTube algorithm is helped every time you subscribe to the channel, and hopefully you're finding this content helpful and engaging. I'm going to continue bringing it to you, but I'm also excited to hear from you all in the comment section about things that I can talk to you about. So don't forget, I own a IT consulting firm that has about 25 employees, and we have around 40 clients that we're working with on a monthly basis. Our goal every single month is to sign around 4 to 5 new clients into our portfolio so we can teach you things around Google Analytics and how to get your website at the top. What are those algorithms doing? How are they helpful and beneficial? And what you can do to kind of generate additional revenue by being at the top of the list as it relates to Google Analytics. Just before I even get into the content I wanted to talk about today, just so folks know, if you're watching this, when you go out and look for a website, so if you went out today and you searched Power BI, so Power BI Consulting Services, Power BI is separate, Power BI Consulting Services, and you didn't do anything else, generally my website would be somewhere towards the top. However, there are ads that sit at the top, the very, very top of every Google site, every Bing site, every Safari site that you're looking at. And generally, people are not thoughtful of that. They just kind of go and say, okay, there's an ad, click it. Scroll down just a little bit if you're looking at things like my website, and you will see that after you get through the ads, we're one of the very first sites that pop up to Power BI Consulting Services. So take a look for that. If you're ever going out to look for a friend's website or a business that you know, if someone that you know or someone that you're going to engage with either way, try not to hit the ad because you're probably charging them a pretty significant amount of money. And so I generally like to tell people that so you can save small business owners like myself money by not clicking that ad, but rather scrolling down just a little bit and looking for my website, powerbiconsultingservices.com. So that's a little nugget on advertising. No one likes to overspend for their ads, so that's just a little bit of information that might be helpful to someone who is, going out there to look for Power BI or business intelligence consulting. All right, so today's episode is all around my current portfolio and what I'm doing with it, what my goal is, and some of this I'm still fleshing out. So you're not going to hear my 3 to 5 year goal, but really what I've been doing with my homes thus far and what the intent of those are. And my approach is fairly hybrid. So I'm going to mention a couple of names today that are sort of what I'd like to call, folks that are doing things very similar to me, right? Because I mentioned it in our previous session together. I'm doing a lot of Section 8 low-income housing in the area that I'm purchasing a lot of my real estate. And I do that because of where I came from. I think it's very important for people who don't have a ton to have great options as it relates to where they live and where their kids live. And so for me, I'm doing this because I think it's important for people to feel confident in where they live and not have to hang their head low when they go outside their home. And I want that for anyone, no matter what your income is, right? And so oftentimes you don't have that luxury if you come from nothing. But really what I'm doing today, as far as my investment portfolio goes, it's providing people who may not otherwise have nice homes in good areas. And so we'll talk about some of the people that I know that are doing that. And I won't get into too much of details, but rather both of these guys have podcasts on the Biggerpockets podcast. I really think Biggerpockets should be paying me for all the references that I'm giving to their YouTube channel, to their podcast. But they've taught me a lot, so I'm going to shout them out as often as I can and not take for granted all the information that they've kind of flooded into me over the past year. That's kind of really helped propel my investment story forward. I would say I probably listened to them for about 3 to 6 months before I even made my first real estate purchase. Because of that, I can give them shout outs for free. They really did invest in me, so now I'm investing back into their channel. And I may get the names somewhat pronounced wrong, but Joe Asimo, sure I'm getting this wrong, but Joe came on to the Biggerpockets show and talked about what he's doing. I think it's in the DC area, purchasing homes, renovating them a bit, and then renting them out to Section 8 tenants, and how he's really kind of fell upon a cash flow gold mine doing so. So take some time and look at his information. He's all over the internet. Joe, Asamoah, Asamo. Sure, I'm saying that wrong, but close enough. And he's got tons of content out there on this. I didn't even know this was a thing until after I'd already decided that I was doing it. It was kind of just the thing that I knew I was doing, and now I've realized there are other people doing this exact same thing, which is kind of cool. Go figure. I've always said I'm not super creative, and so the fact that other people are doing it kind of just reminds me, I didn't come up with the creative idea all by myself, but rather other people are doing this too, and it does make sense. Another person that's doing this, Zasha Smith. I think she's doing it in Hawaii, but she too came from sort of a poor family like myself and has sort of built out her real estate portfolio. And so she offers low-income housing in Maui, which is an area that is not known for housing that's affordable. And so kudos to her for taking the time to do this too. And so let me talk a little bit about my thoughts right now as it relates to how I'm building out my real estate portfolio. I've mentioned a lot of my homes in current state are Section 8 or low income housing eligible, meaning I welcome anyone into these homes. I want you to be able to afford it. So I'm going to keep the pricing affordable for people who are on Section 8 and low income housing. And that's my primary, so far it's been really my primary audience. And there's some good reasons for that, right? So I own a business, and for a while, you guys know I worked a full-time job. And so a lot of the cash that I was getting offhand wasn't really, so far, it's not really the cash flow that's significantly important to me, but rather that forced appreciation and equity, sort of that value of those homes that's most important to me. But all of my properties do cash flow. And so with Section 8 housing, as you would imagine, it's guaranteed income. You don't have to rely on a tenant who has a job to pay you, but rather you just have to rely on making sure you've got your checkings account information up to date with the HUD house or the folks that are kind of managing that, and the money just flows into your account every single month. So that's awesome, right? So that guaranteed income that you get from Section 8 housing is very enticing and interesting to me. And so that's one of the primary reasons, on top of the fact that I came from nothing and lived in this sort of housing my entire life and want to offer people nice homes. The other thing is I don't have to worry about collecting rent. It's all managed from the Section 8 housing folks for the most part. Now, some people may have to pay a portion of their rent, but you're going to still get some of that guaranteed income from the government for that particular tenant every single month. So that makes it super easy. So that will remain a part of my portfolio. And on Biggerpockets and a lot of other platforms, and I do this in everything, you're going to learn a ton about me as we kind of do this podcast together. I take information from everywhere. Grant Cardone, Robert Kiyosaki, Dave Ramsey, all have different perspectives on how you can generate wealth and become a millionaire. I've taken really nuggets from all of those individuals to get to the place that I'm at today, being able to call myself, a millionaire. And so to do that, process I've used is just gaining information from all these people, taking nuggets of it and seeing how it can be translated into my perspectives and thoughts, or how I can use it in my belief system. And so Section 8 is a part of my portfolio, but it may not be the only component of my portfolio. Short-term rentals are something that I'm super interested in. So in one of my previous episodes, you guys heard me reference a triplex. So this triplex that I am renovating right now and hope to have done by March, fingers crossed to get this done just a little bit early, but I'm not super, confident that's going to happen. But if it does, great. But in this unit, I'm going to do an Airbnb unit. And so still debating about what that's going to look like entirely. But let me give just another shout out. The Asheville Cottages in Asheville, North Carolina have the most amazing setup for someone going on vacation. I love visiting the mountains during the fall. It's exceptionally beautiful. And if you get super lucky, you can find a time where it's snowing there and you can go visit. But the Asheville Cottages are amazing. I'm sure that's going to mean me and my family have less availability when we go look at their site, but it's okay. If you're going to Asheville, North Carolina, look at the Asheville Cottages. I highly recommend them. But their setup is really the epitome of what I'd love for some of my Airbnb units to be like. They're just completely convenient, comfortable beds. I think they're all sort of those electronic beds where you can kind of push the buttons and make settings on your side versus your spouse's side, whether it's soft or hard. I love that. So the beds are amazing. The bathtub's heated. The floors are heated in the bathroom, and it has a bidet in it. And so So I thought, okay, I've got to have short-term rentals that kind of exude what they're giving in their units. And so in my triplex, I'm going to have to get a little bit more creative, but the idea is to have a very similar setup where people can walk in and it's immediately comfortable and they enjoy being on site, and that we offer unique things for their family such that they'll want to come back again. So I am starting to dabble in short-term rentals. And along with that, I'd love to kind of tap into sort of that nursing sector, right? So if you have these short-term rentals that are fully furnished and fairly unique, and we also rent them out to nurses and to traveling, general contractors, people come to do large jobs in the area. And so I'm kind of dabbling with that. So I think that's going to be probably 10 to 20% of my portfolio at some point will be short-term rentals. And as you would imagine, I just told you we have 10 doors now. So to have a single short-term rental gets me to that 10%. I can see that expanding up over time. The property that I just went under contract on has a great site in the back of it that could be nice for sort of RV parking and sort of RV glamping sites. So I'm sort of playing around with what that might look like and if I can get that permitted in the area. But again, I'm getting really creative on how I might be able to basically marry up my long-term rentals, my buy and holds, with doing some short-term rentals as well, where there's tons of cash flow and income that can be generated from that. And I think having a healthy mix is really important. Also, along with that, I think a portion of my properties will just be standard rentals, right? So I'm doing a lot of nice renovations in these homes, and there's a shortage of rentals available in some of the areas that I'm purchasing in. And so because of that, I think opening it up and allowing for really anyone to stay in these homes will be important, and just increasing the rent rates for those folks as well. So, I'm of the opinion, and I take information from folks and kind of consolidate it, look at it, and say, what's best for Nicole? And so you're going to get a ton of feedback. You're going to hear a lot from people around, what should I do? And you're going to hear one person say this, another person say that. And so I encourage you to simply do what's comfortable for you. And it may very well be a mix of what Dave Ramsey's saying versus what Robert Kiyosaki and Graham Stevens and the Biggerpockets family is saying. And so collect all that information and say, okay, here's where I'm at. This is what I'm comfortable with. Let me do that. I think at the end of the day, the most important thing for you to do is to take action. Don't consume all this information for years and years and never act on it. And so that's one of the biggest things I do is I'm kind of mentoring people and giving them feedback and perspective. I'm super impatient. And so I'm like, just do it. Just go out and do it. Now, granted, I think doing it at your pace and making sure you're ready for it is super important. But at some point, do take action. It's so important. If you want to build generational wealth for you and your family, the first step will be taking action. So in a nutshell, that's a little bit about kind of how I've decided to sort of manage my portfolio. So just to recap, my thought is not to do just one way. I want to kind of have a well-rounded portfolio that limits my risk, but also gives me the ability to generate large cash flows and also sort of that forced appreciation and equity over time. So I want to purchase and want my portfolio to be very well-rounded and not singular in nature, so that if something happens to impact one, I've got two other areas in which to fall back. And so I would encourage everyone to kind of look at their portfolio in that way, so that as they're making decisions and as things are happening across the, economic spectrum, you've got so many different, means of which you're generating your income. One's not going to negatively impact you so much that you have to go out of business or sell off your properties or do something crazy. So that's my 2 cents. Everyone's going to have a different perspective. Some are going to say, get good at what you already do, become an expert in one area. But once you start buying real estate, you're going to quickly realize that it's relatively the same, right? So for my short-term rental, just so you guys know, my very first one, I'm not going to manage it. I'm actually going to have someone manage that for me. My single family, I will manage myself, but I don't live in that area. And so, and we do a lot of renovations to make sure those are move-in ready. And we've got a staff of people to kind of help with some of that. Short-term rentals require cleaning crews. So when a manager, VRBO or Airbnb sites. And so because of all of that, I felt like it would be easier just to outsource that component of the business. And so I've kind of been researching companies to do that for me. But generally, I manage the rest. So, my thought is make sure you've got sort of a big, well-rounded portfolio. I'm not going to say that, you can't master just single family homes or master just multifamily units. You will. I think as you're kind of doing your real estate, journey, you're generally going to master these areas anyhow. I've learned a ton from home to home to home. And so every single one's a learning experience. I'm soaking up all the knowledge and information, and then I'm taking it to the next one. Not everything's been perfect at all. But what I would say is that these learnings have been super helpful, and I'm excited to continue on this journey. Again, if you haven't already, subscribe. Go ahead, do it. I'm waiting. Hit it. All right, I'm assuming you've done that by now. Again, appreciate you guys sort of listening in. If you have questions, if you want me to talk about something specifically that I missed today, let me know and I will do that. Leave comments in the comment section. I do read those. No matter how not nice or nice they are, I'm taking a look at those. I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm adjusting my content accordingly. So again, this is Nicole McKinney signing out. Hopefully you found this helpful. Talk to you next time.